Oh, I can record now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, if you record it, then it's easy, I think.
Yep, it's recording now.
Okay, cool. All right, add it to the phone.
Let me share my screen. Hello, everyone. Hi. So this is the third talk in the series of GitLab talks. Today we're going to talk about GitLab CI and maybe other advanced topics as well. But there'll be plenty of time for Q&A, so definitely do bring your Q&A after this talk or anytime during this talk as well. Pipe out in the chat or that'll be best. So here's a little bit about me and how to contact me if you have any questions after the talk. That's my email or that. So that's probably the best way to contact me offline after this. So the agenda today is we'll introduce GitLab CI. We kind of already touched about it in the last two sessions, but we'll talk more about it in detail. And then along the way, we'll talk about Docker and GitLab Runner because they are related concepts as well. So the first thing, what does CI mean? Let's talk about that. CI is continuous integration. So it's basically a state where on every push to the Git repository, the application gets built and tested by some automatic thing on every push. So with Git, Git and GitLab provides this continuous integration as well. So a practical concrete thing would be usually would be compiling a Java application and then running JUnit tests on the compiled application. So, and it'll be the same kind of build and test steps for different types of applications, say Golang or Ruby. If you want to read more about what continuous integration is, definitely do click on the link included there. Because that's only the first step, and then there's other related concepts as well, such as continuous delivery, which is where you can take the concept further and start continuously deploying to production or staging automatically. So why do we want to practice continuous integration? Well, because there are some benefits. The first thing being automation. So automation reduces manual errors, and it provides a repeatable process. So rather than someone manually doing it and maybe having to remember to do it, having the machine do it on a certain event, which is new code has been pushed, means that you won't forget to run a build step or a test step as well. It also increases confidence that every commit works because we're actually testing on every commit instead of testing at a manual point in time. And it could be hundreds or thousands of commits before someone remembers to actually run tests manually, right? Yeah, so that's the idea. So given all the benefits, GitLab offers CI as well as part of GitLab. So in addition to version control, GitLab has CI that's packaged into GitLab as well, and it's meant to be fast and simple. So if you click on the README link that's in the left-hand side, there's a really quick start guide, and I'll talk quickly about it as well today. So how GitLab CI works is very simple. We basically store the what your CI looks like in a file called .gitlab-ci.yaml file. So, or otherwise we call it the GitLab CI YAML file. So this configuration as code approach means that you can check in this file as well into your version control. And as we all know, version control means that you can share the same configuration with other team members as well, which makes it much more easier to share your changes and make sure that everyone in your project knows how the CI is set up and contribute changes as well or fixes as well. And that's basically all you need to know. All you need to tell GitLab how to run your CI. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, GitLab also provides some example templates as well for certain projects, such as Android templates to run Android projects, Bash, C++, Java, and so on. But those are just example templates just to help you get started. Well, I sort of wasn't completely transparent. Actually, there's one other thing, which is that you need something to actually run the CI because these are executable scripts. So we need a runner as well. But we'll talk about it later. But for now, we assume that the GitLab that you're working on has runners set up. So the GitLab CI YAML file. On the right, you can see a minimal GitLab CI YAML file with 5 lines, and that basically describes one execution where all it does is just echo "hello world" in the script there. So if we execute this, GitLab CI will run a job that would print out "hello world" in the output. Everything kind of clear so far? Yeah, no, cool. Silence is good, and I don't see any thumbs up or thumbs down, so all good. So a few concepts about GitLab CI, just a couple. So GitLab CI, each push creates a CI run, and we call this run a pipeline. So a pipeline constitutes a full CI execution of that commit that you pushed, and then when someone pushes another commit, then another pipeline gets created. So you can think of pipelines as basically a collection of jobs. And on the right there, what we've defined in the GitLab CI YAML is 2 jobs, and and we have the hello job, which does print out the hello world, and the goodbye job, which prints out a different message. So that's a pipeline. And within each pipeline, you have a collection of jobs from one to many jobs. And a job is basically a unit of CI that runs a script, a particular script. Now we can run kind of many lines of scripts, or the kind of best practice is to call a particular script that's already checked into your version control, such as scripts/tests to run your tests, for example. And that script is defined in the script configuration there. Oh yes, sorry, I forgot to kind of mention one important detail, which is that the GitLab CI YAML uses the YAML language to specify attributes of a job. So the first thing here is the name of the job, which is hello, and then all the so YAML is white space delimited. So everything that's indented in are attributes of that hello hash, and you can have several other keys as well. And one of the keys that I already talked about is the ability to specify what script to run for that job. And then we'll talk about the other attributes next. So the image attribute defines the Docker image that you want to run the script in as well. So what is a Docker image? Well, a Docker image is basically a unit of software. So it defines all the dependencies and all the software that you need to run your script. It actually not just defines, but it already has those things as well within the image. So think of it as a kind of a lightweight operating system. And there are other kind of containers, image systems out there, container image systems out there, but Docker is far and away the most popular one and the most widely used one. To get more of an introduction about what Docker is, there's a link that I can click onto it as well. And on the right, we have a list of example images that you can use. If you use Java, OpenJDK is probably the maybe a relevant image. And the colon here is just a delimiter for the tag. So you can have version, so the number that appears or the string that appears after the right of the colon is the version of the image. So latest is basically the latest image version of the tag of the image that gets pulled out. For example, the latest version of Alpine or the latest version of Ubuntu. So one job that you need to do to define your GitLab CI is to find the right image that can run your scripts. So you basically need to find an image that has installed the software and dependencies. So if you want to run a Java project, you need to find an image that has JDK installed in that image already. And also, you might want to check that it's the image is using a suitable operating system such as Ubuntu or Debian or Windows or whatever. So you may not have any requirements, in which case it doesn't matter too much. You can just use the image, whatever image they provided, whatever operating system that the image maker has chosen. But sometimes you might have specific needs for a particular operating system. So that's something that you can do in Docker Hub. So Docker Hub, I forgot to include a link to Docker Hub, but it's hub.docker.org basically, and you can search for those images there as well. But that's not the only place that you can find Docker images. You can find Docker images anywhere in the internet, basically. Now, what if there's no suitable image? For example, you want an image that has Open JDK and Golang as well. And so what do you do? And you can't find anyone that has provided that, or you can't find a recent enough image. You can make your own, basically. So Docker is such that anyone can publish their own images, and we shall quickly talk about that. So one of the trends in kind of development nowadays is to have a build step where the project creates a Docker image and basically defines and installs all the appropriate dependencies, and also installs the application into the image as well. And then we run tests against the image, and then we also take the concept further and push the image out to run as production, basically. So it's really handy to know how to make your own Docker images, and there's more details there in the link to the left. So how to define and build your own Docker image starts with a file called dockerfile, and the dockerfile basically is where you define what kind of base image you want to use for your Docker image and what software that you want to install into your image as well. And it's written in such a way that you can also run other things as well. You can run any command. So if you want to not just install software, but also run software to generate something, you can as well. And on the right there's an example Docker file that I created from a GitLab template as well. So GitLab has some example templates for Docker files too. For example, Golang or HTTP, which is Apache, and many others as well. But again, those are just starter templates too. The link on the right is the link on the left is a reference on what things you can define in your Docker file. So if you have time, I would encourage you to take maybe half a day to try and build a simple Dockerfile. It's quite an interesting exercise and possibly quite helpful to get some practical experience with Docker. Let me think. Okay, so I think we talked a little bit about how to build your Docker files, and basically that concludes how we can use GitLab CI, define GitLab CI to run, to build and run tests for your project. And this next section, we're going to talk about Runner, which I kind of promised to talk about as well. But before we start, just to check in, is everyone clear on what we've been talking about, or do you have any questions? All is good so far, thanks. Fantastic. Has anyone tried Docker before or GitLab CI? I'm interested to know.
I started it because in my old workplace we were moving towards containers, but I'll admit that I'm still very new to configuration and getting it running.
Cool, that's great. Thank you. I see one yes as well. Okay, cool. Some of you have tried it, which is great. Definitely, I encourage you to at least try writing a Docker file just for practice. But in terms of setting up GitLab CI, I think that's definitely a must. Just so that for all those benefits, rather than manually writing those up. Okay, let's continue with GitLab Runner. Now, I talked about GitLab Runner as a kind of a prerequisite for GitLab CI. What is GitLab Runner? GitLab Runner is basically an agent or agents for GitLab CI. You can for certain GitLab, you can have many runners installed, and it will pick up and run a specific GitLab job. So remember previously, when you push a code, you can have a pipeline, and a pipeline will have many jobs, and basically you want multiple GitLab runners to be able to run each of these jobs. So that's what GitLab Runner does. So GitLab Runner is written in Go, and it's written to be to run in many different operating systems, and you can install it in Mac OS, Windows, Linux, and you can run it in VMs or Kubernetes as well. So, for example, probably useful in, say, if you have a .NET project, it's probably useful to, and you can only run it in Windows potentially, maybe not Mono, but .NET specifically, then having a GitLab Runner that can run on Windows is very useful for you as well. So how GitLab Runner works is that each GitLab Runner, when it's free, it will poll GitLab and ask GitLab if, hey, do you have any pending jobs for me? And GitLab will respond back with yes or no, I don't have any pending jobs, or yes, here's a pending job for you. And what the runner will do is say, okay, great, I will pick up this job and I will run that job for you. So GitLab will then update the status of the job to running and update the job to be run by this specific runner. And GitLab Runner will then take the image that you specified, download the image using Docker, start out the image, and then runs the script within that image. And then you can see the output of the run as it's running. And then we repeat the cycle once GitLab Runner has completed a job, whether it's successfully completed or failed. Depends on the script, of course. And then GitLab Runner will report back, and GitLab CI will update the job. Will say failed, or succeeded, basically. And succeeded is the green tick here. You can have kind of shared or specific runners. So a typical scenario is that a GitLab instance, your GitLab would have some shared runners, so that any new projects can run kind of normal, kind of day-to-day, normal kind of CI runs, because GitLab Runner is agnostic. It's just runs software, so it's ideal for a GitLab instance to have shared runners set up that can run jobs for any project. So, do you know if the Vic GitLab has shared runners set up?
What was the question, Tom?
Does the Vic GitLab have shared runners set up, or does students have to set up their own runners?
I think runners can be set up. I'm not so sure if the students have to do it or if it needs to be done by one of the programmers, but it can be done.
Oh, okay. Nathan says.
We have some shared runners, but not many.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that at least enables people to at least try things out. So it has a shell and a Docker runner as well. Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, the not many thing is probably relevant because as I was saying, each runner can only run one job at a time. So, oh sorry, it depends on the parallel configuration as well. But if you have more jobs than runners, then your jobs will have to wait for a while before it can run. So that's great to have shared runners. At least we can kind of find out if your CI works or not. Now, if you have specific needs, or you find that the shared runners are not running your jobs fast enough, you can set up your own specific runners for your project specifically, or for your group of projects. And the way to do it is to first install the runner, and you can consult the docs in here. On your specific VM or hardware. I remember a session ago, someone had some specialized hardware. But basically, the prerequisite here is that you need some sort of compute, right? Yes, you can install Runner on your laptop, but your laptop probably won't be connected to the internet all the time. And it's probably hard to get networking, right? So if you have some sort of cloud compute, that's probably the best place to set up a runner, or internal networking compute. Forgot one point. How much memory does it take up? You can set memory limits as well for runner, how much memory it can take up. The memory depends on what script is running as well. So if it's running a huge Docker container, then it'll run that much memory, if I am correct. Another note is that if you are running on GitLab.com, you get 2,000 minutes free per month. If you want to just try out CI and you're on GitLab.com. Yes, sorry, I wish I can provide more context about kind of installing runners, but it's really OS specific and also context specific. But the docs there are really extensive. They cover each specific OS thing. So if you follow the docs, you should be good. And the only hard part possibly is finding the appropriate compute, some sort of VM that you can install it on. Nathan asks, are we able to change how often the runner polls GitLab for jobs? I believe there is a setting when you install the runner. So let's go into it. Let me just quickly search runner GitLab. Yeah, so when you install runner, there's a configuration file, which is a TOML. It's a more strict version of YAML. And I think you can configure how often it polls, but I might be wrong. Pool policy. Check interval. Yeah, check interval is what you want. Try and link the thing. And the default check interval is 3 seconds, it looks like. No. Everyone. All right, I've added the link to the configuration setting in the chat. Okay, so that kind of concludes GitLab CI. It's a bit short, sorry, because the topics are so broad and I wasn't sure like which to cover. So like if you have any kind of context specific questions for your project, like if you're starting to set up GitLab CI, happy to take questions or you know, troubleshoot briefly.
If you have any questions for Tom, feel free to chuck it into the chat window. If people want to screen share something and walk through their GitLab, we're happy to do that as well. So that's what Tom's here to do, a Q&A. And Tom's also offered to give another session, maybe later this term or sometime in 302. So is there anybody? There you go, Kirsty's got a question.
Kirsty asks, should we be using Kubernetes for our projects? If you're comfortable with Kubernetes and you understand Kubernetes, yes, sure. But if you don't know Kubernetes, then that's just one more thing to learn. So I don't know if it's absolutely mandatory. Yeah, that's kind of my opinion. I mean, if you
yeah, so I guess the question, one way to answer that is, if you feel there's a need for that on your project, then the team should decide. It shouldn't really be up to Tom to make that decision for you. Neither should us. But if you feel there's a need for using tools like that and you want to experiment with them in your project, then by all means, definitely experiment with them. Run it through your customer as well. Have a chat to them about what they think. There's no right or wrong, but the idea of this course is for you to experiment with different technologies. So if you want to go for Kubernetes, then that's certainly something you can experiment with, but it's not mandatory. I guess Robert, another question.
Robert asks, when using multiple boards for individual sprints, is there a way to separate the issues? They all just appear on the same boards.
Yeah, so what, just to clarify Robert's question, we're using the issues in the system and then the issues are then used for the boards like Kanban boards, but we're using the boards inside GitLab instead of a separate system so that the academic lecturers, Aaron and I, can see everything, so we can help assess them. Otherwise, if everybody's using a completely different system, we won't know what's going on. So I guess that question is quite valid, actually. Thanks, Robert. So I guess when using multiple boards for individual sprint, is there a way to separate the issues? Are you asking, I mean, so you can put an issue per board, but are you asking, can the issue appear on multiple boards? That's what you're asking? Maybe you can just talk, Robert, or you can answer the question.
I just mean like having, because for every sprint we have so many issues, if we could just have, like for the first sprint, have those issues appear on those boards, and then for the next sprint, have those issues just appear on the next board. But all the issues just are on all the boards. I mean, like.
So you want one issue to be on multiple boards is what you're asking?
No, the other way around. So like you only have 10 issues on like one board, and then on the next board have only 10 issues.
I see.
Oh, but hold on. I mean, each board has issues that you add to it. Are you asking the number of limit? Is that what you're asking?
Whenever you make a new board, it just has the same issues from the previous board on it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to bring them onto the board itself, though, don't you?
The list, like the lists go on, but like all the issues are always on the same on all the boards. You can't like separate the issues.
Can you screenshot what you're showing if you want to? If you're happy to show your team?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just easier to visibly see.
Once again, sorry. How can I share my screen?
There's a share screen button at the bottom, and I think that will stop Tom's going. And I assume you're happy that your team, you're happy to show your teams.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So like on here, can you guys see that?
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
So all our issues and boards. And if we go into like say sprint 1, it doesn't change anything. Like it's all just the same.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Going to sprint 2, it's all just the same issues again.
Okay,
Yep.
so just create a new board then.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's what I've done. You create.
Yeah. So I understand the idea now. So basically, the boards are kind of think of a board as a consistent per team, rather than per sprint. And if you want to have per sprint things, what you want to be using is milestones instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Say that again. Use what?
Milestones.
Okay.
So.
Okay, sure.
So if you tag each issue with so if you create milestones, say milestone for sprint 1, milestone for sprint 2, and so the idea is that then you can filter your board by sprint 1 or sprint 2. So there's a filter there next to the drop down.
Yeah.
So you can filter by milestone instead.
Okay, I understand. How milestones work. So the boards just doesn't really work for sprints then.
Yeah, the boards are meant more for different teams. Right. So let's just say you have the database team working on your project, and then the development team working on a project. They will have different boards, taking in different issues. But if you want to disambiguate between sprints for the same team, then milestones is the way to do it.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
So I've used Trello and Kanban Flow quite a bit, and they have a much nicer way of using boards. I'm not as familiar as using boards in GitLab. So what you're saying is, even though an issue is associated with a sprint on this board, canonically it doesn't actually represent that sprint.
Yeah.
So it needs to be added to a milestone. Is that correct?
Yeah, milestones are how you represent sprints.
Right. Okay. So a board's rather than a sprint. Okay, I see.
Yep.
But you can have a separate board per sprint. It's just a label. Got it.
You can. Yeah, you have the same board, and then you filter it by the milestone.
Sure. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the canonical aspect of an issue isn't actually associated with that actual board. It doesn't make sense. It's on that board.
Yeah.
But the actual real representation is the association is really with the milestone. Mm-hmm. But you can have the same name of that sprint the board being the same name as that milestone, and that may be one way to simulate that sprint-like board. What other systems do.
Yeah. I think the other way, there is another way, which is that you can kind of change your board definition to filter on specific labels. Yeah. So if you have a sprint 1 label, then you can change your board definition to only look for issues with that sprint 1 label, for example.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then you create a new board that looks only for sprint 2 labels. That's another way to do it.
Like anything, there's so many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, it's kind of too flexible, but it was deliberately done so because GitLab doesn't really kind of push any particular agile methodology. So
yeah, no worries. I guess Nathan has a question there.
Just lock myself out. Let me just get the screen back. Okay, Nathan, are we able to publish a package to the releases page which has been generated inside the CI pipeline? Or is the releases page only available to manually created tags? Okay. Great question. This has been a very, very recent feature where your CI pipeline, you can now define your CI pipeline to publish a new release to it. I'll try and find the docs for it. But yes, it is possible now to do that, to publish something to the releases page immediately. So related to that, I was saying that Docker Hub was a kind of a commonly used place to find images and also to store your images as well. I forgot to mention that GitLab also has a place, also offers Docker image hosting as well. So rather than pushing your Docker images to Docker Hub, which is situated far away, it's much more simpler and much more convenient to just push your Docker images to GitLab, to the GitLab container registry, we call it, where you can store your containers there, and that, and also that means that latency is much smaller as well, because you're pushing and pulling container images on the same network basically. Let me try and find the release GitLab link for you, for Nathan. I'm looking for that. Does anyone else have any questions or for GitLab CI or anything else?
Yeah, if not, then we can let Tom go. He can stop the recording, and then we can switch to Q&A with Andre. Sound like a plan? Thumbs up? Yes or no? Claps. Okay, Dylan Jen says, yep. Okay, well, thank you very much, Thong. I guess if maybe I think if I'm looking at the schedule, we've got something for the next 2 weeks, but maybe potentially after that, if people are interested, I've got nominally a slot for the 12th of June. So the 12th of June or the 19th of June might be applicable if people want some more questions, so we can take it, we can hold off to then. Would that work for most people? Assuming that it's okay for Tom.
Should be, yeah. Just let me know. Yeah, depending on the volume of questions, or if anyone has any need.
Okay, well, I'll send an email about that. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
And we'll switch over to